Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, we are now about to start our webinar. First, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Romel Biray. I'm the sales lead for the Philippines. And I have more than 15 years background in IT consulting solution selling. Mainly, I had ERP experience in the past. And now with Expensing, a cloud spend management solutions company. Now, quick tips before we start, and then for everyone to have a best webinar experience. So try to join the webinar from your laptop or PC. Next, please ensure a stable internet connection. And third, please share your questions in Q&A. It will be answered by the end of the webinar. And as we go along, you can also send in your questions so we can have it tackled before we close the webinar for today. Now, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Shabir Imani. He will be our speaker, and he is our founder and director of Expensing. Now, he has more than 30 years of experience in spend and cost management and considered as a thought leader in Asia. Now, what's the good thing about this webinar is it's not just academic, but he will also give you an insider's view of what works and what does not. So over to you, Shabir.
Hey, thank you, Romel. And if you can stop sharing, then yeah, great. So welcome all of you. It's a pleasure to have a webinar which is only for people from Asia, because then I can greet you good afternoon. Too many of my seminars I have to start off by saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Here is one of those situations where one doesn't need to do that. So yeah, we'll make this seminar nice and useful for all of us today. So we have an interesting topic today, very, very relevant and useful, which I guess is manifested by the fact that you all are here. And the fact is that a lot of you who are attending today would probably have some kind of an ERP in place, and you want to see what can I go beyond, because the world has changed and there is a need to go ahead and look at it. Let's, I very often go ahead and say, why should only non-business seminars have stories, meetings and seminars. Let's start with a good story here so that, we understand. And I'll try and make the stories. Stories are very useful because one, they teach us a lot of things if we are willing to really learn from them. And second is that they always are interesting. So, this is the story of a town in Tennessee in southern US, a town small town just south of Nashville. And this town had a history of, the ancestors being lumberjacks. I'm sure you all understand lumberjacks means they were in the logging industry. Of course, with United States having moved on, economy having moved on, that was no longer the profession of the people. The people decided, let's go ahead and create a celebration of our ancestors by going ahead and handling a small competition, which will be the logging competition, which will be held for the participants. So there was a lot of excitement about it. And finally, they went through lots and they picked up 3 people who got finally selected for this. So we had Tom, we had Francis, and we had Jane, who were the 3 people who were picked up, and all 3 were very excited about the competition. Finally, the day of the competition dawned, and when they came there, they came to know that the rules were that each one of them would be given $5,000 as a starting this thing, and it was up to them to go ahead and decide how they wanted to use $5,000. But there was, at a distance of about 100 meters, there were tools for all 3 of them, which were kept there. But if they wanted the right to use the best tools, then they had to bid for it. Tom, being the smart one, knew that, he wanted the best tool, because how well we do anything is dependent on the tools that we have available to us, both mental as well as physical tools that we have available to us, which determine how well we would do. So he bid entire $5,000 on being able to go first so that nobody else could really, outbid him. And obviously they couldn't, so he became the first choice. Francis was a little disappointed by the whole thing, but he wanted to make sure he at least is the second. So he bid $3,000 for that. And Jane was thinking, is it worthwhile to bid more than $3,000? Because she would need to outbid him if she wanted the second choice. And finally, she decided, hey, you know what? I don't think it's worthwhile to pay more than $3,000. So the order got decided. Tom got to go first. He was very happy when he went there to see that out of the three tools that were there, which were all axes, his was the best. There was one axe which was brand new, still packed, shiny, made from the best metal, excellent handle it had, which would allow him to really perform well. So he decided to pick up the axe, show it to the crowd, show his new shiny tool that he had, for which he had paid $5,000, a lot of his money, all of his money. And the crowd cheered for him and said, wow, this is fantastic. What a great tool you have. And I'm sure it's going to help you win today's this thing. Next was Francis's turn to go. Obviously, the first tool had been picked up. So he saw an axe which looked okay, but was not sharp at all. And obviously, Francis was a little disappointed because he had seen the kind of axe Tom had, and therefore the advantage that he would have. So while Tom immediately went ahead and started, hacking away at the trees, Francis went to, they were allowed as per the rules to buy additional tools with the money that they had. So he went to the store, which was right next to where this competition is, and he started looking at things which could be used for sharpening the axe. And he asked for prices. Finally, he decided that the only thing that he could really afford was a $2,000 manual sharpening machine. So he picked that up and he said, okay, I'll sharpen it manually, though it will take a little bit more time. He went to his patch and he started sharpening his saw manually. Jane's turn next to go out there and see what was there. And she was really disappointed when she saw what was the third tool that was left for her. Not only was the axe not sharp, but the handle which she would use for holding the axe was broken. And she was like, what do I do? But Jane knew that she had $5,000. So she went to the store. And the first thing that she, kind of did is she said, hey, you know what? I want an electric saw if you have one available. And she was smart. So she said, can I rent it out instead of buying it? After all, we are in a world today where you don't have to buy everything. You can subscribe for a time period that you want. So the storekeeper said, sure. So what she did is she rented out, she paid out $1,000 for just one day for an electric saw. And she bought, along with that, rented for a day grinder, paying another $500. And she, just to be doubly sure, she bought an extra blade for the electric saw in case this one gets this thing. So now she had three tools. She had the electric saw. She had her axe, for which she got the handle repaired, for which she had to pay another $500. And she had a grinding machine, and she went to her patch and she started off on the work. And people were already commiserating with Jane of, not having the best tool available, etc., till of course they saw Jane use the flexibility that she had to, adapt to whatever was new that was happening here. So she went to her patch. By the time she went there, Tom had already got 5 trees down. Francis had already got 2 trees down. And here she was just starting with her listing. And here was the crowd cheering them on and seeing what is to be done. And the whole thing was moving along well. And these people were hard at work. And then after 2 hours of time, they were told, hey, lunch break, because you're doing manual work. So you can't, like we work in offices for 4 hours, maybe at a stretch before we take lunch. When you're doing hard manual work, you take a lunch break. So they took a lunch break. And, the 3 participants quickly assessed what was happening. And to everybody's surprise, Jane had already cut as many trees as Tom had using the electric saw that she had. And Francis was behind. He had roughly 2/3 the number of trees cut, which Tom and Jane had. So just before they went for eating their food, the organizers said, well, here is a change of rules in the sense of that not only will we count the number of trees that you have felled, but these trees need to have no branches on them. They need to be like logs which can be shipped out. And the branches also need to be stripped of all their leaves. All the three participants were a little surprised. The audience who was watching was clapping because they knew that there was excitement. Pretty much like what happens to us in business life, the economy changes, some rules are changed by our governments, other governments change their rules, which impact us, and we need to adjust to it. Tom realized that he was kind of licked in the sense of he had already spent all of his money, so he just decided that he had a good axe, he would use it for cutting off the branches from the logs and then see how to strip off the leaves from those branches. Francis was in a similar position in the sense that he had no money left. So he said, I'll have to make do with whatever is there. Jane, on the other hand, had some money left. So she had the option of additional tools to take care of the change situation so that she could be more effective in creating the output that she wanted. So she went back to the store and rented out kind of a leaf stripping machine, which she could use. And she decided for cutting the branches, she would use the axe so that she doesn't use her electric saw too much. She put her tools together. They went, had a quick meal. And then the organizers announced, okay, 2 hours more, back to work, and then we will declare who the winner is. So everybody went back, started working on their work. Everybody was hard at work. Audience was watching spellbound. But Tom was beginning to already see that his fancy tool was becoming blunt. What he cut in the first hour, he wasn't even getting half the productivity from his new shiny, this thing, because obviously the more you use it, the more blunt it gets. At least in Francis's case, he had the ability to sharpen his saw. So he kept creating time to sharpen the saw and kept his productivity to. In the case of Jane, she changed the blade of her electric saw to the new spare blade that she had bought. She started using the axe for cutting off the branches of the trees that she had felled, and she used the stripper to, within a minute, remove all the leaves, whereas Tom, Francis were taking a lot more time to go ahead and do that. And lo and behold, soon the 2 hours post-lunch was over and it was time to count. The result caught everybody by surprise, not least the participants, because the maximum result in terms of the number of clean logs with branches and leaves removed were Jane's. Number 2 was Francis in terms of what he had done, though he had not even achieved half of what Jane had achieved. And Tom was actually the one who finished last, and he's the one who had the best tool to start with, the choices that he had to go ahead and move out there. So there was a big cheer for Jane, and everybody was very happy and this thing. And Jane, fortunately, had not used all her money. So not only did she have the tools, but she also used the balanced money, since you can't carry the money out, to actually order some cake, not just for her fellow contestants, but also for the audience who had been there cheering all of them together. So Jane had her cake, she ate it too, and she shared it with all the people by virtue of using the right tools for change situations that happen out as you go about doing any kind of work which you are doing. In this case, obviously the shiny tool here is the ERP, and therefore, there are a lot of lessons here for us to go ahead and learn from the need to use the right tool for the right kind of requirements that we have. And this has become especially important. It always was important. But I think the pandemic and the associated changes, right, from the Ukraine war to the supply chain crisis to, the inflation which is hitting all of us and so many other things which are happening, it has really changed our world in dramatic ways. And hence there is a need to, ensure that we don't rely on something which served our requirements at a particular point in time to continue to help us as we go ahead. So here is a nice, way to remind ourselves out there that you cannot control the wind. Yeah, but the tools that you have, you can select those. In this case, the sales that you have and how you use them. So it's not just about the tools that you have, but also how you use them. So if the wind changes, if you know how to, direct your sales at the right thing, you can still be proceeding in the direction that you want and have the kind of speed that you want out here. So think of, therefore, the ERP as a tool which, for purposes of history, you should know that this was a tool which actually got invented in the last century, and it serves even today a very useful purpose, as I'm sure all of you who are using your ERP know and use it on a day-to-day basis. But it is not something which meets all your requirement. And ERP is great at capturing transactions and showing the impact of the transactions on all areas that get impacted. But I'm sure you realize that in today's world, there is a need to do a lot more than that. And same thing is happening in the information technology world, which I wanted to talk to you. Of course, digital transformation is a whole new area which is coming up. But I wanted to talk about one specific thing which most of the leading analysts, whether you talk about Gartner, whether you're even management consultants like McKinsey, are opening up to. And they're realizing that as you go through digital transformation, there is something which is happening here, which is, called the composite applications which are coming up. So those of you who registered for the seminar, would have seen that on the landing page where you entered this details, this was there. But a quick history to understand what we mean by where we are as far as composite applications and what is required for today's environment is concerned. In 1980s, when really applications started off, this was the start of the PC era, the first few PCs appeared. You had organizations had a number of simple applications. Typically, these were built on applications like COBOL or, other programming languages like that. And they were disparate applications, and you had to somehow make sure that you transfer data from one into the other so that they kind of all remained in sync. Yeah, these were what today we would call as a legacy system. Then in the 1990s, like I said, ERP is a last century product. In the 1990s, we had the ERP come up, and we no longer had these 3-4 separate things because we suddenly had an integrated application which had finance, which had HR, which had sales and distribution, which had inventory. It had so many different areas which were together, and it made sure that the different parts of the application talk to each other out there. And it allowed us to have what came to be known as a common system strategy, because one system, of course, there were disadvantages because when you buy an application which has so many areas, 1 or 2 areas will be good, but some of the other areas may not be the ones most suitable for you. But still, it was a big step up on what we were moving ahead. But today, where we are, where with constant competition, the turbulent environment which we are in, or lots of organizations facing issues, not just of growth, but before they reach the growth area, survival issues, we came up with this idea of what is known as a composite application. So what is a composite application is you have your basic ERP, but you add a lot of other applications which work closely with your ERP, bring in new areas like digital transformation in it. This could be right from areas like expense management to business intelligence. You would have noticed that a lot of applications have already started going out of ERP compared to, say, even the 2000 or 2010. Like most ERPs do not have an HRMS built into it. Most ERPs do not have a CRM built into it, and so on and so forth. That whole concept of what is called as the deconstruction of the ERP is a process which is happening right now as organizations understand what is the core value that ERP is providing, and then use best of breed applications around to go ahead and do this. And in our case, we provide applications like in the area of strategic sourcing. We provide areas in the areas related to vendor portal. We provide areas related to request for payment processing. We provide applications in aspects related to procurement, which are important to people, which in case they feel that these areas are not addressed adequately, like there can be other areas out here. So we definitely moved, about last decade, we moved into this area of composite applications. But the moment COVID hit us, it forced us to change further. And I think today, if you want to look at what the state of the art as far as, so 98% of Fortune 500 companies already have this thing. And in the last 2 years, even small and medium enterprises, have started implementing composite applications. I'm sure some of you have implemented composite applications for yourself. Today, the state of the art is that this is your organization, and it has its own composite applications which you work with. And then you are working with a lot of other organizations in your value chain. And these organizations are also evolving into their own composite applications. And today, what is required, especially as we deal with, members in the value chain who may not be in geographical proximity to a same city, same region, same country, may not even be same continent out there. What we are beginning to see is the need for these applications to go ahead and talk to each other. And fortunately, what has enabled all of this and made it easy for us is the huge strides in integration of different applications, which has happened in the integration technology, so that these applications can go ahead and talk to each other. So I want you to take a second and ask yourself, where are we on our journey? What areas, if any, have we moved to composite applications? Do I see gaps in my ERP right now where I think it may be smart to move to a composite application and add to my ERP, for my organization or my departments or my personal effectiveness and productivity? Ask yourself that question. And two, are you really ready to step into this era, which is a whole new paradigm of working? It's a whole new effectiveness. It's a whole new productivity possibility when your value chain applications can talk to your applications in a seamless fashion and, eliminate a lot of repetitive and useless work, which, donkey work, which really doesn't add value to the your organization, but it needs to be done by somebody. And very often some of that dumb work falls on you and your team to go ahead and do out there. So, I'm using this as an opportunity to ask yourself. I've deliberately designed this webinar not in a way where I tell you a lot about our applications and how fantastic our applications are, and you should buy these applications. Instead, I want you to really take away something from this webinar in a way where you get some action steps which allow you to show your effectiveness in your organization by going ahead and making suggestions which would help the organization move ahead. So therefore, as an ER, having understood this thing and having understood the possibilities that, yes, you can be onto composite applications, as an ERP user, you can take two approaches. And which of the two approaches you take would, of course, be dependent on your organization, its culture, its risk-taking ability, your own ability to influence things within your organization, your company's economic condition and how well it is doing, how fast is it growing, is it not growing? A whole lot of factors like that would come into the picture, which, I don't want to get into since I want to keep this, really crisp. And I'm sure that's something that you can figure out. So the first approach that is there is, and this is, as the second point there says, this is a no-brainer approach. identify areas which are not at all covered by your ERP right now, but you feel that if you add those areas, they would add a lot of value to your organization, your department, to you, to your boss, whoever are the relevant stakeholders, customers, whoever you think would be. So what are some of the applications which you can have? Remember today, if you look at, I was studying the kind of systems which say a Procter & Gamble in the US has during my recent US trip. And over and above the ERP, they happen to use SAP as their ERP. They are using about 84 other applications as, some of which would be what we are here calling approach one applications. That is things which are not addressed by their ERP and they want to go ahead and add those applications to themselves. Let's take a few examples so that, the whole thing becomes real, like you want a request for quotation or a request for proposal kind of a system. Most ERPs do not provide them. With the supply chains getting disrupted, there is a need to bring in new vendors, keep, there are regulatory requirements for knowing details about your vendors and ensuring that they're genuine. So vendor empanelment, when you want your systems to talk to other systems, then your vendor portals for exchange of information and document with your vendors. The applications I've mentioned here are obviously the ones which, expensing specializes in, because I don't want to talk about other areas which I'm not an expert in. I would rather, talk on subjects where I've seen my customers get value out of implementing some of these applications. So something like employee expense reimbursement could be an application, recurring expense management, including things for rent and any other kind of expenses which occur regularly, like electricity or insurance or subscriptions. There are powerful systems which help you do that, which typically ERPs do not do. The request for payment processing and the actual payment making, including creating the electronic file for making the payment, multiple payments together instead of the old ways of issuing out checks and things like that. Contracts management, you want to keep the legal team as well as different departments, including procurement, who need to use contracts, but there can be sales contracts, any kind of contracts, and asset lifecycle management. So again, there is a need to get maximum out of your assets, and therefore the asset lifecycle management could be an important area. So that was approach one. Yeah, approach one is the clear no-brainer. The approach two is a little more mature approach, where you are saying, I need to go beyond just filling in the gaps in my ERP. I want to analyze which aspects my ERP is no longer serving today by virtue of the changed situation of my organization, the changed competitive environment, the new kind of workforce which is coming into my organizations. I need a different set of applications too, so that even though some of those areas may be there in my ERP, I want to go ahead and enhance those areas further. So like I said, one, it is a more mature and therefore a sophisticated approach. And it will also require, you to convince your organization of what it will do. And I think one of the best ways of doing it is in terms of the payoffs, which are mentioned here. And a lot of these areas, which again, I'm going to talk to you about, have excellent payoffs. So here are a few applications in that, so if you have a large number of people whom you want to have put in purchase requisitions and complex approval rules, including sometimes checking for budget, which is the next thing that I put your proactive budget control, so that you never go beyond budget in your spending while looking at a purchase requisition and before approving it, or maybe before approving a purchase order. These are areas which you could do. There could be catalog management and e-com like requisitioning for common needs of people, because so many people today are used to buying of e-com. So can my requisitioning process be like that? Can my lot of these applications move to mobile? Mobile is such a game changer in terms of what it can do for you. Like, can I do touchless procurement so that, I don't need to virtually go to my system for, creating a PO or checking out the status of the PO or knowing when I'm going to get delivery against each of these. And this is especially true for non-direct materials, and this could include your assets, this could include your consumables, this could include your recurring expenses, which I had mentioned about earlier. So you can use that. You can use it for the vendors invoice processing, which then eventually will lead to the payment and the request for payment coming up. So you could use it for that and any other specific areas where there is a gap in functionality between what organization department or your department needs and what the ERP provides. So I've just given you a few things. I want you to take quick notes of any areas which you think would be useful. Even after this webinar, we'd be happy to get in touch with you and help you do this. One small note of warning that you need to understand is there's a very powerful force at play in organizations called status quo. Yeah, and you yourself may be kind of into that, or you may be outside that, but experiencing, you may not be into the status quo, you may have a growth mindset, and yet you struggle in your own organization to go ahead and convince them. And hence it is important to make a good case as to what payoffs, what value these things will add before you go out there, because
Hi, Shabir. Sorry to disturb. We still have 10 minutes remaining for your.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So it's important to go ahead and clearly understand that while you may have an innovative idea, you may have an idea with conviction in its ability to make a difference to your organization, like some of the applications we talked about in both this category, which is the category 2 application approach, as well as the category 1 applications that we talked about. But you are going to face some resistance. And sometimes as this thing talks about here, those who do not move, do not notice their change. Till you actually start looking of how can I do better, you sometimes don't even know about the opportunities for effecting the kind of improvements in productivity, in profitability, in effectiveness, in serving your customers or your vendors better, or helping your production teams better. You don't even know about it. So be aware of this as you get into your organization about this thing. And therefore, if we try to distill it down into what kind of action can you take on the basis of what we have mentioned here, is be clear how you're going to handle the status quo. If you yourself are into a status quo mindset, see what it would take for you to look at becoming a member who looks beyond today, looks beyond existing things which are already there, and shows to the organization what you are capable of by coming up with innovative suggestions. So handling status quo, therefore, and that's why the previous slide was there, is very important. I would suggest start with some areas in the approach 1 applications. Like I said, those are no-brainers. Those are gaps which are already there. They are there for all to see. And therefore, it becomes an easy way to convince your organization to go for that. More important than that, you can use it to build your own credibility and show a quick win inside your organization by taking an application on and showing, since it is anyway not addressed currently, it becomes easy to go and implement it, show it as a win. But even while you're doing that, keep looking out for other approach 1 and approach 2 applications. Sometimes the areas which can really have a significant difference for your organization may lie in approach 2. But they are going to be a little require, as I've put in here, buy-in for these applications. So ensure that you create a case to make sure that that buy-in happens, and you are doing a systematic study of what areas, how they would help your organization, and which would be the best options to look for these kind of applications to implement in your organization, given whatever is the ERP that you have. And once you have done this, I can assure you, I've seen it in organizations that you will not need to sell it anymore. Up and down the organization, people will demand more and more of these kind of applications for themselves, and then you can do what is required on a prioritized basis on whichever are the approach one, approach two applications. I've seen organizations take a one by one approach. I've seen organizations take multiple applications together and do it together. It just depends on your organization's bandwidth, budget constraints, risk-taking ability, so many aspects like that, which would help you determine what is the best approach to take as far as this is concerned. And like in everything in life, when you know you are not the, while you have ideas that you are not necessarily the expert, reach out to people who you think are experts in our areas which are related to spend management. If you choose, you can reach out to us. We'll be very happy to help. My team and I will anyway be in touch with you, even post this webinar. So, if you have had time to think and decide what is the approach, discuss it with some people inside your organization. And on the basis of that, you have questions which you want to ask on different approaches. You want something of what other organizations have done so that you can weave that into your story when you present it in your organization. Please feel free to tell us. We've worked with hundreds of organizations in probably 20 different countries. So, we are happy to share that kind of an experience with you. Let me just end it by saying that while sometimes where you are starting off, the path may not look very clear, but like the great philosopher and poet Rumi said, as you start to walk on the way appears. You may not see the end right now. What is required is to show up at the start line. What is required is to take the first few steps that are required related to that. And once you have done that, as you step forward, the next few steps start becoming clearer, and before you know, you've reached your destination. It's an approach to life. It's an approach to life that works invariably. And my invitation to you is on your composite application journey and on your journey of adding to your ERP application, to increase the profitability and effectiveness of your organization. Start off on this journey, even if the whole journey is not clear to you upfront. And that's why the phased approach that I talked about is something that would work rather well. You already know Romel, my colleague Mithilesh, who helps me with the ASEAN market, is another person you need to know. So, some of us out here and a few others who are not on this slide would be the ones who would be in touch with you. So I'll stop my presentation here. And what we thought, in order to make this whole concept a little more real for you, something which is a little more actionable. My whole orientation here is make it actionable. We thought if you saw a quick glimpses of a few applications, in both category 1 and category 2 areas, we've deliberately selected a few applications in both of these areas. And I have Rajni, who heads my product excellence team, who is the one who's going to show you these applications. It's going to be very quick. This is not to, the objective of this is not to show you how good our applications are and how detailed they are. We are not trying to do that. The objective of this is give you a feel of what these new age composite digital applications are, how mobiles can be used, how portals can be used to change the way people work. So, over to you, Rajni. If you're ready, then maybe you can start showing them a few glimpses of what are the possibilities so that it helps them decide on their journey forward.
Yeah, thanks, Shabir. So I'm going to share my screen here quickly. I'm hoping everyone is able to see the screen. So as you can see here, this is the complete suite of product, that Shabir did talk about as part of the approach 1 and the approach 2. And today I'm going to take you through some of the snapshots of, some of these products, beginning with the purchase requisition part, which will, which is from the procure to pay part. Then I'm going to talk about the request for quotation, request for proposals from the strategic sourcing. And we'll also look at some of the aspects of the vendor portal. So let me now, kind of show you one of the aspects which was very important, which again Shabir touched upon, was the mobile way of working. And especially in the post-COVID world, we've realized that, mobile is the way to go. It allows you to work anywhere, anytime. And what you see is the mobile application of expensing, where you can do the purchase requesting process. It's a lot more easier in, from the ease of use perspective. Everything is masterized and parameterized. So, there's not much that you have to do from the data entry perspective. Quickly put in the information on the go. There are attachment facilities as well. And then, you send it for approval. The complete approving cycle can also happen on the mobile app. So if I'm one of the approvers, I have the access to the mobile app. I can look at the details of the requisition process that has come to me, and I can either reject or approve. So imagine you're in the middle of a meeting. You don't have to, people do not have to wait for your approvals, because we've realized that this is the most time-taking task. And the faster the approvals happen, the faster the procurement can happen. So it's all connected. So yeah, so that is how the complete purchase request can be, kind of processed. And also you get to see the statuses of it. So if I want to see what is the status of a particular request that I've put into the system, I will be able to see that through the color coding itself. So green means, yes, my request is approved. This is in, draft mode, the ones that has not been approved, etc. So I kind of get that at a high level overview. While I was talking about the emphasis on the approval parts, while mobile was one part of it, the other most liked and, the fastest way of approving is the email approvals. Now, what you see here is you get email notifications on your, on your handheld device, and through the same, you will be able to look at complete details. So what is the purchase request all about? Who has sent you this information? So which employee has sent it to you? All the details that you would like to know about the procurement that one is asking for, and go ahead and approve and reject through the email itself. So again, it's much faster. If you want more details, you can always log into the screen using the, click here, but, otherwise you really do not need to do that. You have everything that you need to approve or reject the purchase request. Now, while we did talk about the aspect of, doing it from the mobile application, the most traditional way, I thought I'll just kind of give you an overview of how it is done through the web application as well. In the system, it's it's a wizard-based process. So you say what you need, why you need, and submit your purchase request. Everything, like I said, it's coming from the master. So if I'm looking for a laptop, I say that I need a laptop. I need it to be delivered by so and so date. I would say that I have a new joinee in my team, and hence I'm looking for this laptop, and just create the purchase request. The thing to note here is that in practically 3 steps, which would take you probably less than 5 seconds, you are creating the request in the system. Yeah, and this is much lesser than what you would otherwise take when you're actually drafting an email. So it is all, it's more like streamlining the process with the right control parameters. So, we've seen you do it either on mobile, you do it either through the web application. Similarly, you can do the approvals as well through the web application. So you have a very colorful dashboard. It is categorized in the various compartments. You go ahead and look at the complete information that has come to you, and you see that the dashboards are also very detailed. It tells you what you're purchasing, what is the rate, what is the total value, when is it to be delivered. You really do not have to open it. So that's how the complete look that, or rather the information that you need to approve or reject is on the screen. It also allows you to do bulk approval. So, so that's all about the purchase requesting process. Now, what I'm going to do is take you through another interesting, product, which is the request for, quotations, or request for a proposal. You can see that this again is a dashboard driven thing, and what it tells you is this is actually a logical movement of the process in a requesting of a quotation or a proposal process. So one, you create a draft of the event, you publish it to your supplier so that they know what you're looking for to purchase or procure. And then it gets into the responding mode where the responses from the suppliers or your vendors will be sent to you through the same portal. Once you receive it, you can go ahead and do the evaluations, the shortlisting, and basis the approval process, you can have a selection of the right vendor, and finally you can close the event. So, that's how it moves from one, parameter to the other one. I'm going to open one of it here just to show you what and how detailed this process is. This is how the event, usually gets created here in the system. So all the information that you need to give to your vendors is put as part of the summary. So you can say, for example, I'm doing an IT procurement, what it is all about, the complete approval process. And we have a lot of control parameters as well here. If you want to, kind of do a staggered event, standard event, or you want to do, a very straight line level awarding as well. The other important aspect for your vendors to know is the milestone. So you can define your milestones. When do you want the query resolution window, window for selection, when is it due? So you can kind of put in all of that. And bill of material plays a very important role. And here the system allows you to create different categories of, different categories for your purchases. So if I'm doing IT procurement, I may want to procure things related to hardware, software. I can then put it into relevant categories and also award hardware to one vendor and software to another vendor on the same RFP process. You can invite your suppliers. There are annexures that you can kind of, attach for the suppliers to know more information. Then we have the checklist, questionnaire, and financial for your qualitative and quantitative questions, and, do give some weightages. The system will calculate, when you give the scoring, the system will calculate the weightages. And finally, it will give you a complete evaluation as to which are the vendors who actually, participated in the event, how much have they scored in their respective categories. And then, you can go ahead and do the selection of the vendor or the shortlisting of the vendor first, and then finally send it for approval for the selection process. Of course, there's a price breakup, which again, from apple to apple comparison at the item level can be done for all the vendors who've participated. And there is a query management window. Now, query plays a very important role. It is all about collaboration and coordination. Now, I can imagine in an event where there are 10, 15 suppliers, being participating. If at all there is a vendor, there is the same set of questions that comes up from different vendors, you can actually broadcast your responses to everyone by masking the name of the suppliers. So it kind of saves a lot of time for your vendor management team, and they don't necessarily have to respond to each one of them. Also, the dashboard gives you a complete view of the supply, the queries that has been asked and the queries that has been responded. So, there is a dashboard that tells you the complete event that your organization is created, what is the status of the queries, how many queries have come, and how many have been responded to. So, that's how the overall process of the complete the RFX, that is the quotation and the proposal, can happen. If there are certain suppliers that are not part of your current vendor master and you want to invite one-time vendors, we also have a very mini registration process via which you can get one-time vendors also participate on this particular event creation. There's a lot of configuration, etc. You can, have, the master setup. You can have, it's a role-based system. You can have roles being defined to the members, etc. So this is how the overall process of the, the request for proposals and quotations can happen. Now I'm going to get into, another, product module which we spoke about was the vendor portal. Now, vendor portal is all about doing digital transformation, taking your digital transformation actually to the next level. Now, here what happens is you are giving the access of the portal to your suppliers, where the suppliers are able to, quickly send you the invoices through the system. Now, what it does is, one, it saves a lot of time of your team, of your business users, your AP team. It saves a lot of data entry time because now everything is offloaded to the suppliers themselves. Again, it's a very quick, easy form. They can, kind of attach the document, then, tell which date is this vendor invoice coming from. There are duplicate checks on the system, and just, send it for, to the right team so that they can go ahead and review the invoices and then take it forward and the payments can happen. Saves a lot of time. The other aspect is the advanced shipping notice. So, the advanced shipping notices can be sent by the suppliers. We also have the aspect of document management, which plays a very important role. If there are any additional documents or updates that the vendor wants to give the buyer side, they will be able to attach those documents here, right, through the system. And then, there's a complete view that can happen. One of the important aspects for the vendor that they get on the system is the payment visibility. While they are doing the data entry part, it's a win-win on both sides. They do the data part of it, but they also get to see what is the status of the payment. So they will see, the invoices that was sent, what is the process, in which process it is. And if they want to look at the payment details, they'll be able to look at all of them. So, I will kind of open one of it. If the payments have been done, the payment files have been uploaded into the system back, they will be able to see that. So this is very important for the vendor to know. Otherwise, the vendors keep following up for payments to the finance team, and that takes a lot of productive time of the finance team in these follow-ups. So this is what, saves a lot of time. So that is what you are able to see out the aspects that we've covered right now. The three products was the purchase requisition, the complete requesting for proposal and the quotation, and finally the vendor portal.